Hello, in this video we're going to discuss wormhole element influences part 1. So wormhole element can be influenced, and it depends on the shape and configuration of the element as to what effects that you produce and how you get them. So we're just going to discuss information I've received from heaven about what you can do with wormhole element, and this will make it easier for people to comprehend how God managed to survive in a vacuum environment, and also how he managed to create planets. So inside the wormhole element chamber, so remember we spoke of in the earlier video how God was created inside a naturally formed sphere-shaped chamber that was made out of wormhole element. So it's a massive asteroid, cluster of asteroids brought together by one fragment of gravity element, which produced a naturally formed sealed chamber that filled with air and then created God. So what happens when someone touches the inside of the chamber? Okay, for our species, nothing. Okay, so we'll define humankind and angel kind are different from God and God's descendants, such as Jesus, in that we don't have this ability. So it's the emission of gravity. That's the difference between God's and Mary's descendants and humankind and angels. That's different. But in heaven, super archangels have the same ability. Alright, that's built into the super archangel chassis. They have the same ability. So inside the chamber, every time God touches something, in this case, gravity is emitted from his fingers or his hands. So, touching the wall at a quadrant. So see how I've divided that circle into 4? There's 4 there. There's in fact more than that, so it's just an example. Alright? So the different parts of the wormhole element chamber, different parts you touch do certain things. So the science of this I cannot explain here, but what I can explain is what does happen when it was touched by God. So touching the wall produced a black ball that emitted air. So there's a quadrant where God would touch the wall and emitted air. So another part inside the chamber, if God touched the wall with both hands, it produced a black ball inside the chamber and a black ball outside the chamber. So this is a wormhole outside. Alright, so that's another quadrant that does that. Creation. So, to create something, God would touch the wall at a certain location in a quadrant, and it would create a species which was either male or female. So when you look at the process of creation, for males, it is a clockwise direction of which the soul material knits together. For a female, it's an anti-clockwise process. Now, working with wormhole element, God used a 4-foot long rod that was 4 inches wide. So this rod was made by wormhole cutting. So in other words, God got outside the asteroid, touched the side of the asteroid, which produced, with both hands, and produced a black ball and a second black ball at another location, and God was able to cut away some wormhole element and make a rod to work with. So all this still involves touching as well as gravity. So the hand touching the rod and emitting gravity through the hands, and intensity, gravity intensity, increase or decrease the amount of gravity emitted. So touching the ends produces a black ball, wormhole. Touching both ends at once produces two black balls. So you put an object through one black ball, it'll come out the other. So that's for teleportation and for wormhole cutting. If you put those two black balls together, what do we get? From an earlier lesson, another dimension. Touching one end of the rod and moving a second hand along the rod moves the ball left or right. Touching one end while having a palm underneath, so the palm is still emitting gravity, moves the ball forward or back. Touching one end and pushing in with the hand on the bottom, but not touching the bottom, increase the size of the black ball. Increases the size of the wormhole. Moving the hand away decreases the size. The one to move the palm, to move the black ball, was you have one hand on top and you'd move his hand up or down the side of the rod to make the ball move forward or back. Right. Now, so we can increase or decrease the size of the black ball. Now, gravity element connected to the rod produces a fixed wormhole to the next dimension. So when we look at our stack of dimensions, the very next dimension, if you were to combine a wormhole rod and gravity from here, what would it do? Where would it go? If I were to have it in this room right now, the very next dimension is the safety dimension. Alright? I wouldn't want to go there unless I had a spacesuit on and a way to get back, because that dimension is full of vacuum and is not supposed to have anything else. So that's just an introduction to wormhole element influences and how certain things can be achieved with a wormhole by hand by God and God's descendants. Just remember, Jesus is one of God's descendants. He's God's eldest son and is capable of doing this stuff. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.